When the man-made Isle Notre Dame was built, it was originally for the 1967 World's Fair. It's rather appropriate, then, that we're taking the championship-winning F1 car of that year to its pavement. But the drivers will be enjoying the thrills more than the serendipity as we get ready to watch Round 10 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, being assisted by Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve has developed a reputation for throwing up odd results in its races, so let's get a closer look at it to find out why. Welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Host of the Canadian Grand Prix for over 40 years, this track's popularity among fans refuses to wane. Although it has gone through a few alterations in its history, the nature of its layout has remained pretty much the same. That nature, of course, is that its 14 turns are mostly chicanes, split up by long straights to add up to a 2.7-mile street course-like canyon of a track. These 4.3 kilometers are mainly made up of actual streets on the man-made Ile Notre Dame, though portions are specifically built for the racetrack. But whether or not fans consider it a true street course, the close barriers that line the majority of the track don't care what you think. Places like the exit of Turn 4 and Turn 9 frequently collect the greedy. But these pale in infamy to the notorious Wall of Champions. Named for its penchant to collect F1 World Champions, the corner itself is called Quebec. Regardless, it's a finicky and tight chicane with a critical corner exit, so drivers are tempted into edging the car as close as they dare to the concrete. Despite the numerous heavy braking zones, passing can be difficult at times for certain types of cars. Often, attrition or cut course penalties play a bigger part in who finishes where. While sports cars and NASCAR have both made stops here, this place is mainly known for its history with Formula One. Named after what is easily Canada's most popular driver in the International Open Wheel Series, this semi-temporary circuit looks like it's actually here to stay for a long, long time. Quite a distinct track compared to many others. Even on street courses, this really stands out, Joey.
It's a really neat track that has a lot of high speed and a lot of braking, which means passing opportunities. As you see here, 14 turns in length, first opened in 1978, 2.71 miles in total. And the first sector, call it turns 1 and 2, actually a little bit tricky, both going in and trying to roll the throttle on. It seems like turn number 2 kind of lasts forever on the exit there. And then you got to be careful of the walls through these next series of chicanes. The 3, 4, 7, 8, and 8, 9 complex, they all have hard concrete walls on the driver's exit side. So if you get out a little bit wide, or maybe you're on the back foot in the beginning half of the chicane, you can certainly pay the price on the back half of it. Turn number 10, the hairpin all the way down at one side of the track. Good passing opportunity going in, but even more important, get the power down coming out, because you see how long that casino straightaway is. You're going to be reaching some incredibly high top speeds as you enter into that Wall of Champions chicane, that turn 13, 14 final couple corners, and it's called the Wall of Champions for a reason. You better get out the other side if you want to make it to the start-finish line and win today's race.
Exactly. I think surviving going to be a big part of this one, no doubt. Now, as for the points championship situation, Valenteus is up on the top now over Mick Claridge, after Mick is the one that had a bad race compared to what we saw with Valenteus when we were down at Knock Hill. So Valenteus is actually looking very, very good thanks to the drop weeks. While it is only 33 points, because he has so many wins out there, he has a lot to fall back on if things do go south from here. So that means he's actually very close to trying to wrap it up soon. We'll see what happens today to really try to get a better picture as we get later in the season. Nieva, Hisada, probably a little bit difficult for them to try and do anything at this point. They're probably battling for Bruggen to decide who is the last of the top 3 by the end of the season. Why don't we take a look, though, at the F2 standings as well, Joey?
We've got a couple of groups of battles over here in the F2 driver standings. It's currently led by Jem Matson. You see, call it a handful of points ahead of Tobias Harnvey there, but then Tobias and Jonathan, only 5 points separating between those two drivers. A little bit of a gap between that and our next battle here. You see only about 15 points or so separating Alan Graham, Mats Linden, Thomas Willershausen. And then once again, it really tightens up for the next group of drivers. You see Ben Summers, Mitch Eller only separated by a couple points apiece. And then Roberto Pengrazi and Thomas Tuba tied down there at what would be 9th and 10th place. So a few battles still here to settle in the F2 standings.
Well, speaking of battles, if we look at the Nations Cup, at the top 3 are incredibly close this late in the season. 20 points between those top 3. In fact, 2 points between the United Kingdom and Spain, really duking it out for that top spot. But we'll see if Valenteus can kind of be the lone soul that is carrying the weight of Lithuania and take it to the fight for that Nations Cup. Japan and the United States very close in the fight for 4th position. And whether or not Toko Hisada can kind of clean things up late in the season to come back and get that 4th spot, we'll have to wait and see. Tied, though, for 6th between the Netherlands and Italy. Certainly is fun to watch how this plays out, since it has slightly different rules than the Drivers' Championship, and hence why it's so much closer. But Joey, why don't we take a look at our race details?
Yeah, we are here, I believe, around number 10 of 12, so just a couple more races after this one. 21 laps is what we're going to be doing around this Montreal circuit. Then open setup as always, and just like we've seen with the Lotus 79s, the Lotus 49s, a very welcoming community. Go join the Discord. They share the setups over there, so if you're interested in driving one of these vintage machines, definitely come out and give it a try. No spare cars, so if you pick up any damage on these very dangerous walls, you're going to have to live through it. Drive through at 17 incident points, disqualification at 25 incident points. With these Lotus 49s, the big break zones and the tight chicanes, I think it's going to be more destruction and demolition derby versus a disqualification at incident points.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. And it's not too long of a lap around here, so most drivers have actually set their times. Mick Claridge, currently the quickest, but we're waiting for the first lap to be set by Audrius Valenteus. And I expect he will be quick here today. But Togo Hisada, Togo is now taking the fastest lap at a 32.9. His first one got deleted. So on the one shot that he had, Togo managed to nail it.
It's a nice job from Togo, and it's kind of been a little bit of an up and down season for that driver as we watch Valenteus now here in the number 1 car go through this final chicane, this wall of champions, flirt with it on the outside there, and you see him get a nice run to the line. He's actually going to get a second lap in, the first, a 133.0. It's going to put him firmly inside the top 10. In fact, up to 5th so far as Jakku just went purple, Joe. Seb Tixier to the top of the board.
And it was very close before that. Hisada, Claridge, and Kaki were within a 1/10 of a second of one another. But Seb Tixier put it 2/10 ahead of all of them. So he's put a bit of a marker down for Valenteus to try and grab. In fact, it's 3/10 ahead of Audrius Valenteus. Let's see what his lap is going to be like as we continue to ride on board here. This is a critical exit onto the back straightaway.
You're going to be approaching what is the turn 8 and 9 chicane complex right here. It's actually kind of what I feel one of the most open areas of the racetrack, and kind of go bounding over both of those apex curbs. You see him abuse them and then drive it all the way out to drivers right there, just kind of flirting with that exit wall. And then here, pick your brake marker. Make sure you get this thing slowed down in time, because turn 10 is an incredibly tight hairpin.
And getting the power down on this car, especially at low speeds, can be tricky. So watch for drivers to have to be so gentle on the throttle. Jorge Nieves also completing his final lap. But it looks like he may have lost that lap, because I just saw he's going slow. So that's it for him. Valenteus coming through the wall of champions. Can he keep it out of there? Yes, it's nice and tidy. And to the line, he's about 3/10 up. This is going to be close on whether or not he is our pole sitter. 32.6 is going to do it. Just a 10th ahead of Tixier.
He is certainly very, very good at that, sneaking it in at the last second over there. And unfortunately, with only about 7 seconds remaining, this car right here, Thomas Martin, The yellow number 36 car is only going to be able to do these practice laps. This lap is not going to be verified.
There you can see qualifying is officially over now. So as we get this late into the season, it's going to be important to get a good result, and track position at this place is critical. So at the top spot, Andreas Valenteus really holds a prime position starting from P1. Seb Tixier will be next to him, with Togo Hisada starting from P3. Mick Claridge, who sits second in the points, will have to start from fourth today, as Nicola Kaki will be P5 and Leo Sequeiro will start from 6. Kevin Verbruggen, 7th for him, is followed by Arturas Kundalis, who has really showed up a lot this season and kind of been a fly in the ointment to a lot of our fast drivers. Andreas Sleumba will be P9, and Jorge Nieve only good enough for 10th today.
Raul Guardia is going to be starting from 11th with Laust Olsen in 12th. Gary Ho 13th with Steve Morris 14th. Jim Matson 15th. Ricardo Martinez in 16th. Ben Zoko in 17th. Good to see that name out here again. Matthew Maudsley 18th. Mitch Heller 19th. And Aku Liski in 20th.
21st goes to John Olson with Robert Plumley in 22nd. Cam Porter, P23. Then it's Bjorn Ackerman in the 24th spot, and Donald Peak takes the quarter century mark. Then you've got Matthew Keane in 26, Ben Summers in 27th. Thomas Tuba flanks him to the outside. Jonathan Jourdain in 29th. And then 30th goes to Andre Bruno.
Michael Flaherty back here in 31st with Douglas Nelson in 32nd. Jason Clapper going to be starting from the back, 33rd. Marco Salgado, 34th. Gerard Borrell in 35th. Kurt Clapper, 36th. Thomas Willershausen, 37th. And then Thomas Martin rounds out the 38 Lotus 49 cars.
Perfect timing, because the engines are starting to rev here as the lights come up. Drivers are ready to go, and the green flag is out as they accelerate off the line. Valenteus isn't as quick, but the second phase goes faster. Seb Tixier, not able to get beside him down to the first corner, but this first set of corners is notorious for seeing accidents. Will we get through clean?
Look at how long turn 2 just continues to bend around and knock on some wood over here. It seems like everybody has gotten through the first couple corners cleanly. This turn 3, 4 might tell a different story. Too wide going into it a little bit further back.
Yeah, I think that was Gary Ho and Laust Olsen. They'll get that sorted single file. Most drivers at this stage, you can see already single file coming up into turn 6, though. Few drivers trying to take a little bit of a poke, but up at the front, Tixier has lost 0.8 of a second to Valenteus and is under threat from Mick Claridge, who has moved into third.
You see that red number 4? That's the driver that you're talking about, Mick Claridge. He's definitely starting to apply that pressure on that chrome and checkerboard nose of Seb Tixier. But to your point, Valenteus, our leader, has pretty much thrown up the deuces and said, okay, you guys can scrap for second. I'm out of here.
Farther back in the field, it looks like 8 and 9 is our first real incident-filled corner. A number of drivers were off in the runoff. Don't know exactly quite what happened, but we'll get back to it in a bit. Meantime, battle rages on between Seb and Mick. Mick to the outside with Seb trying to hold him off. The noses dip as they slam onto the brakes, coming down into the Quebec chicane. They still stay side by side. This allows Togo Hisada a chance to get involved. He gets at least one.
Hisada is going to now have the run on Claridge, and I actually think that Nicola Kaki there in that bright green helmet had an opportunity, backed out of the gas, and Seb Tixier almost into the back of Hisada in both 1 and 2. Now Togo gets loose. Here comes Seb Tixier with the drive up the inside. Can Kaki follow him through?
May have even had the slightest of contact with him through that corner. They're going to carry the battle on down into 3 and 4. They're starting to seriously check up those behind them. The train is getting plugged up.
In the first opening couple laps, everybody is already seemingly stacked on top of each other, and then when you battle side by side at the front, yeah, it just continues to kind of pile everybody into that rear view mirror. And Valenteus, Claridge have escaped down the road. It really is Tixier versus Hisada for the final podium spot.
Claridge with a gap of about 2 seconds, and it's about the same up to Valenteus in front of him. We'll see if he can run him down after the time that they lost with their battle. But up to Lepingle once again. Tixier going to show his nose. Can he outbrake Hisada into the corner? He gets side by side. Togo's going to give him space, but he might have an easier time accelerating. No. Perfect job from Seb Tixier to take P3 back.
The only problem, though, is that this straightaway is so gosh dang long. You had made the comment that Togo didn't get on the gas soon enough, and actually, you know what? He lifts off the gas in the middle of the straightaway, so maybe he realized, look at that 2.3 second gap now. If we want any chance at kind of reeling in the front two guys, we can't fight anymore on lap 2.
You can tell how important that track position is here. This is fierce fighting at the start. This is Guardia, who was involved in this incident at turns 8 and 9. Did he get some help? Yes, he absolutely did. That was Sliumba, I think, who got him.
And I think that was the number 15 car, like you said, Sliumba. Unfortunately, those early laps in those brake zones with the full tank of fuel can be very, very different from those qualifying setups when you don't have any fuel in the car. You can definitely get caught out as it seems like things have calmed down. I say that, but I mean, what have we got? Half a car length separating probably 4th through 7th, maybe even 8th?
Yeah, it's calmed down for Seb. He's managed to get a little bit of rest from everybody behind him, but Togo's still seeing a ton of cars in his mirrors as we head under the Quebec Bridge and then through 8 and 9 once again, all of them taking it right out to that wall, flirting as close as they dare.
I always thought that turn 8-9 complex, I said it was a little bit more open on those opening couple laps, and there's a really late move from Nick Kaki. Togo Asada took an evasive line to avoid any sort of contact. I don't think that Nicola was going to get into the side of him, but judging that closing rate, especially when you see somebody pop out the right side of your screen, can be a little bit unnerving.
Yeah, I think that's twice now Togo has been overtaken through there. He's going to have to shut the door from now on, especially considering he's still got a lot of cars behind him, despite at least 2 getting through. No, excuse me, just 1. I thought Sequeiro had managed to overtake him. Is he going to try and get back on Nicola down into turn 1? Not quite. The Senna S will see him staying behind the Italian.
This time through turn 2, though, he was actually able to kind of stay on the racing line. Remember, it was Tixier that kind of forced him out wide that previous lap. Let's see what happened to Cam Porter here. The red number 26. This is turn number 1, bouncing up over that apex curb, and looks like it was just a little bit too much of that curb, upset the platform of the car and spun himself around. Didn't look like any damage, though.
Yeah, home soil for Cam, and probably not the way he wanted this one to go. Still a chance to make things up, as we said. Things can so easily go awry for drivers. He's going to go side by side, gets bumped off the circuit. Car behind him goes off as well in sympathy. Cam gets it back on the track, but he's certainly going to have a slowdown penalty from that.
Yeah, probably from cutting that apex there. I think he's probably happy he just survived out the other side of the corner. Joe, you know that it's not often that the 2 cars of 49s go barreling into each other and one comes out the other side.
Exactly. So easy to tangle them and get popped up into the air. And if you do that here, it's going to be hard to stay out of the walls, especially through 3 and 4 there. So back to Togo Hisada, still in 5th behind Nicola Kaki. Unable to re-overtake quite yet, but he's definitely putting the pressure on. And they're actually finally pulling away from that group behind.
They are. Slowly but surely, it's up to about 3/4 of a second between Hisada and Sequeiro in that identical livery, but you see that little sort of a gap. So I think that Leo has a little bit more in his rear view mirror. Togo can kind of focus forward along with Nicola, but I think the damage is already done, Joe. I mean, that 2.5 seconds to Mick Claridge is not coming down at all, even though they're not racing amongst themselves.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the damage has indeed been done. Oh, Jason Clapper with a black flag. Not sure what that's about. He's in pit lane, so he's had some problems. He won't be our hard charger today, unfortunately. What about Kevin Verbruggen fighting for that 3rd spot in the championship battle? He's still down in 7th and is behind Sequeiro. He's also just ahead of Arturas Koundalis. Great exit, though, here for Kevin. He's got a shot, maybe.
See what he can use down this slipstream right here. He really has been the one kind of leading the charge and trying to get by Sequeiro here in that white and red number 8. Let's see what kind of power down they both put in. And actually, Leo does a nice job there to really accelerate out of that turn 10 hairpin, but the slipstream is incredibly strong here at Montreal. I don't think that Kevin is quite close enough. 188 miles an hour before he jumps on the brakes.
Not quite close enough this time, but you do get a second shot down into the Senate S if you get yourself a good launch, which doesn't look like Kevin has any sort of advantage this time. Behind him, Arturas Kundalis in the bright green machine sees Jorge Nieva in there, current reigning champion, who more and more we get into this points battle, it looks like he probably won't be able to take a second title this time.
I'm happy you mentioned the name Nieva because he's been kind of quiet in qualifying. Remember, he qualified back there, I think it was about 10th or so, and then really hasn't made a ton of moves towards the front. We always know that he's just consistent out there. He always shows up with plenty of speed, but unfortunately he does not have the track position to kind of back up that speed right now. He's the caboose in this train trying to get by Kundalis right there in the bright green machine directly in front of him.
He's staying close to that gearbox, and that's the main thing he needs to do. Is Arturas has a bit of a blink, unfortunately. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often. We've seen how tricky it is for drivers to go wheel to wheel through these chicanes. And honestly, the other thing that I find interesting about this track, this right here is the only braking portion of the track where you don't go into a chicane.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Looking at through the track map right now, 100%, I guess, yeah, because turns 1 and 2 is definitely a chicane, albeit a little bit of a prolonged odd-shaped chicane, isn't it? But it is still one.
Yeah, it's if you don't like chicanes, you probably don't want to be going to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, that is for sure. Nieva trying to set up the exit here is in front of them. We got cars going 3 wide. I think that is Jonathan Jourdain, who is a lap down. A lot of cars lap down. My goodness, they are parting the seas like Moses down into turn 1.
And I think that Nikola Kaki is smack in the middle of this. I think that he had a slowdown penalty probably from kind of that final chicane wall of champions area. You see Laust Olsen still trying to make his way through, and that's Togo Hisada that has now dropped down to 10th place. What happened to Togo?
I wonder if he must have had a slowdown penalty. He pulled off to the side. I'm just seeing it now on my replay. So cut that final chicane a little too close and has given up a ton of positions. These slowdown penalties can be a killer.
And what just is odd to me is Nikola Kaki also had a slowdown as well as Togo Hisada. So both of those cars that were running in 4th and 5th place are now down in 10th and 7th.
So for reference, for those not understanding what we're talking about, here we've got a replay. I'm thinking on Togo, most likely, and unfortunately, the media building is in our way, ironically, of the view.
I watched it, and I thought that Nikola was maybe a little bit aggressive in that final chicane. It certainly seemed like Togo was okay. I wonder if he maybe picked it up from one of the earlier areas as Kevin Verbruggen now really trying to pressure Sequeiro into going too deep into the brake zone, definitely trying to show the nose.
Able to make the pass, though, this time. To finish my point from before, those not familiar with iRacing, when we talk about slowdown penalties, essentially it's a cut course penalty if you go off the track and take an unfair advantage over the track boundaries. Might not get to finish the point once again. Kundalis looking at a side-by-side battle with Kaki behind him, but the bright green car of Arturas will hold on to 6 ahead of him for now. To finish my points, iRacing will automatically hand you a set amount of time that it will show you need to give back. Usually the rule of thumb is about your average lap time plus a second that you'll need to slow down.
Keep your eye on Kevin Verbruggen right here in this bright green machine of Kundalis. I wonder if Arturas can make a move down here into turn number 8. Yeah, I was going to say it's not typically the best passing opportunity into this one. Maybe focus on the next set of corners. Oh my goodness, Kaki wagging the tail coming out of that set. But I was mentioned that Verbruggen maybe missed a couple brake zones, and it's definitely starting to stack up behind him. Oh, there he goes again, missing the brake zone in the hairpin.
Way too deep, and look at Jorge Nieva. We said he tends to play quiet until things open up for him. Well, Kaki was one of those distracted by that moment. He snuck through, takes 7th place away. Battle might come back to him, though, coming up into the Quebec chicane. You can see in front of them Sequeiro and Verbruggen still fighting as well. And into there, they're going to stay single file. You know, one quiet one we haven't talked about a lot, Laust Olsen is up in there. We haven't seen him in the top group very much this year.
And in fact, he qualified outside of the top 10 and has moved his way up into 9th place. That's that yellow car with the blue racing stripe down the center. Call it about 4th in that train. And here's another regular in the Vintage Series driving the Unicorn machine. Always great to see Bjorn Ackerman driving the number 24 car here today.
That's going to get him up into 22nd, so 2 up from where he began in this race. Also, just a little housekeeping, black flag for Ben Zocco, I believe, for incident limits. Togo Hisada trying to get at least one of them back. He's fighting with Laust Olsen for that 9th position. Laust is going to have a nose down to the inside, but I don't think he's going to have the overlap coming into the braking of turn 8. And no, he'll get back in single file.
I think that might have been a little bit of a gimme from Laust there. Definitely did a great job racing Togo. And here's this 4-pack directly up the road from him. You see them all kind of fan out, just showing themselves in the mirror of the driver directly in front of him, saying, hey, if you don't get a move on, I certainly will. And there's the run from Nieva already down the straightaway.
Got on the power much better than Arturus. And they're trying to, that must be another slowdown penalty for Bruggen. Trying to give it back as sneakily as he can while still defending down the inside. Here comes Nicola Kaki, side-by-side forces Jorge Nieva off the track. Now Jorge's the one that's going to have to serve that penalty. Togo Hisada is slowed up by this group, and the chain reaction carries on down. Laust Olsen says, now's my chance to sneak through, but he's not going to be able to execute.
I wonder what Togo, Laust, to everybody behind him, Gary Host, maybe even Steve Morris is thinking about Nicola Kaki right now, because in my opinion, Nick did the right thing. He kind of forced the issue on Nieva, and he said, you know what, that was not a cool racing move, and he slowed down coming out of the Wall of Champions, but unfortunately, he had several cars behind him, so Nieva was able to keep the position even though he had to slow down. The right thing from Nick. Like I said, though, not always the best thing on the playground to keep all your friends, though.
Certainly not. And I'm sure there'll be some discussion. And we know it's not the way that he tries to race, so it wasn't intentional, but just kind of the nature of this circuit. Gary Ho now joining in, another driver we haven't really seen on this. And don't worry, he's not watching soccer at the same time. He's got a VR headset. But as soon as he takes it off, I guess he can catch up on the ball game.
Well, now, Joe, we don't know if he's not watching soccer. Some of these new virtual reality headsets, you can set up that augmented reality to see certain areas. Who knows? He might even have it off to the side there. There's plenty of screen space in an open cockpit. You got nothing but sky. You can place it anywhere.
Pardon me, our producer has corrected me. It is football. To most of the world. So as he continues on, I don't think he's distracted because it looks like a good race today from Gary, up to from where he started as well, and now with a veritable buffet in front of him.
Look at how busy this race has stayed. The front 3, really the front 2 kind of have spread out, but there is packs all over the place. Battle for 3rd, battle for 6th place, battle for 15th, battle for 18th, 30th, 25th. I mean, it's just throughout this entire racetrack. I do think that the chicanes providing so much passing opportunity, it's a little bit start-stop in terms of the momentum around this place, but it provides some great drafting and close racing.
In fact, you'll get a draft off of Nicola Kaki for Togo Hisada. But we come back to Ben Zocco a little farther down. He slots in between Willershausen and Don Peak. I know Don was one of those that went off at that 8-9 kerfuffle there on lap 1, and he does show a little bit of damage on the nose, so not sure what happened. Is Zocco is going to be able to sneak inside of Thomas. That'll put him up into 28th.
I did notice that Ben had a black flag earlier. I'm not sure exactly what for, so unfortunately Zocco has a little bit more speed than the cars directly around him. He's now got to make up 6 seconds to gain the next position as Kundelis has made his way to the front of the train. That's Kevin Verbruggen chasing that lime green number 7 now, so the places have swapped around up here for 6th.
It's not a good run off the final corner, and he's unable to defend down to the inside. But remember, it switches back with it being a chicane here. The Senna S into the first corner. He won't have to defend because Verbruggen will back out of it. Behind him, Togo Hisada absolutely drifting once again into the first corner. He is on a hustle right now.
It's been very, very interesting to see the progression of Togo Hisada as a driver. Typically in the 49s here, he comes in and he dominates both in qualifying and the race. But you got to admit, this season's been a little bit different for Hisada. And in my opinion, Joe, because we cover both series, he's actually been performing far better in that Lotus 79 series than the 49s, which is kind of flip-flop from what history has told us.
Exactly. It seems to just jive with him better. It has definitely been, I think, what we consider an off-season for Togo Hisada as we watch the replay. Look at this drift. He catches it, but not before going way to the outside of the corner and nearly into the grass.
Just great car control from that driver. I mean, it's very, very rare that we see Togo Hisada actually spin the car. He just loves the comfort of having that thing sideways, and he certainly knows how to drive it that way too. But down this casino straight, let's see if Verbruggen can hold off Nick Kaki here. Nick using that slipstream, almost 190 miles an hour, chasing down that baby blue number 5 car. And we saw this exit kind of be the Achilles heel, but actually 1, 2, 3 nicely through there and accelerating out.
Kind of surprised we haven't seen anybody clobber that wall yet, knocking on wood. But it's well known for that, and drivers really respecting that outside barrier as they come off of the Senna S once again, still stuck in position. This is kind of what we're used to seeing at this track, where yes, it is possible to pass, but it is tough. And if you don't have, about 20 cars clumped together, it can be quite difficult.
Watch them as they hit the brake zone here. I feel like I'm always talking about Hisada, but it seems like every single brake zone on this racetrack, I've kind of seen him slip up a little bit. Maybe this section of the racetrack I haven't seen a mistake out of in turns 8 and 9, but Kevin Verbruggen, it seems to kind of be more under control with that brake pedal, kind of smack through the middle of the race. He was definitely taking it in too deep in a lot of these brake zones, but maybe with Arturis directly in front of him, it's almost like that ghost car to kind of give you a reference. Seems like he's calmed it down, and there's contact just as I say that. Cocky into the back of Verbruggen. It all started with a stack up from Arturis.
Everybody scattering to try and stay out of that one. Battle at the back with Don Peak side by side with Willershausen. So Thomas was already overtaken by Zoko, and his woes are not over. He's still under attack.
See what happens here. I'm sure we'll get a replay of that 4-pack and kind of that accordion effect of exactly what happened to Nick Kaki. From what I saw, Joe, it certainly seemed like Arturis may be in a little bit too deep, and then it's called an accordion effect. Just like an accordion instrument stretches out and compresses, that's exactly what can happen in those brake zones.
Everybody just kind of tripped over one another. It was a little clumsy through there, but this is definitely not a car that likes those slower parts of the track. It flows. It likes high-speed sections of the circuit and really carrying that speed. Togo Hisada that's gets promoted to 7th as we check out Adrius Sliumba, who is still in battles. He started up towards the top of the field, but has since been relegated down to the lower ends of the top 20.
I think that's Matthew Keane as well as Robert Plumley both trying to get by Sliumba up there in that top right-hand corner of the screen as we watch still this battle for what is 7th place on the main screen. It actually looks like Togo Hisada kind of slipped up there a little bit. And oh my goodness, is that another slowdown for the number 3 car? It certainly is. Just gave up 7th to Nieva. So maybe take that back. 8 and 9, still a problem area for Togo.
Yeah, just took a little bit too much with those big sausage curbs to the inside. Got a replay on what happened to Nikola Kaki. So here we go, Joey. Give us your assessment now that we get a better look.
So Koundelis, the 7 cars out wide. Verbruggen checks up. Nikola Kaki can't get checked up enough, so he goes into the back of Verbruggen. And, props to both Nieva and Hisada there to avoid Nikola Kaki, who is parked stationary on the racing line. But like I said, the slinky, the accordion, it all compressed, and all of a sudden there was nowhere to go.
Down to 7 laps to go, so we're towards the end of the race. If you've been wondering what's going on up at the front, well, not a whole lot, frankly. Valenteus is up to about 3.5 seconds over Claridge, so it doesn't look like we'll see a change there. As Gary Hill gets another one. Laus Stolson has to acquiesce to the number 11 for 9th place, and he's still got Steve Morris in behind him. No, excuse me, that's a lapped car. That's Mitch Hiller behind him.
I think it's about 4 seconds back to Steve Morris, who's hanging on to 11th place, just narrowly actually over Nicola Kaki, who's back out there on the racetrack. Here is Steve kind of wagging the tail coming out of turn number 7. You might recognize that bright green helmet directly what is now in the virtual rear view mirror. This is an awesome shot. This is directly inside the virtual reality feed. So if you've got one of those VR headsets, this is pretty much exactly what you would see.
I love when drivers give us this perspective, and also gives you a chance to see how different F1 cars were about 50 years ago or so. I guess almost 60 years at this stage. Whereas now they're just kind of tucked down tightly into the cockpit, their heads were very up and exposed in the air. Can you imagine 190 miles an hour blasting you in the face like this?
Yeah, it would be pretty incredible, especially with the open face helmets, just the goggles on, right? Definitely eating quite a amount of bugs every single race that you're out there. Maybe certain areas, a few bigger bugs, but yeah, definitely going to be something else. The only thing that I would wonder about, Joe, is that that virtual mirror, do they have a Koopa on a cloud up there just kind of following along the car?
That's a good way of presenting it. Yeah, it's definitely a bit different from what they would have in real life. And some drivers do insist on that reality and take away the virtual mirror. So Toga Hisada, not sure how he runs it, but is still in 8th. He's trying to challenge on Jorge Nieva here, doing what he can to get that spot back. Certainly has been a wild ride for Togo in this in today's event, and probably taken away a good chance for him to catch back up. Yeah, look at how much of that inside curb he was taking. No wonder he gets a slowdown from time to time.
Since you had mentioned the virtual mirror, oh, here comes Togo really late on the brakes. Can he get the car stopped a little bit into the middle of the road? But nicely done from Hisada there to sneak away what is 7th place. You got to wonder, though, the exit. Nieva already on the gas. Togo Hisada using that defensive line, now goes back, drivers left. Jorge looking down the inside. Is he aggressive on the brakes? Backs out of it. Tries to force Hisada into a mistake. And back to my point about the virtual mirror, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but every single race car that I've ever driven, that rear view mirror doesn't show crap out the back end. So I actually turned that thing off. In iRacing, I think it's more anxiety-inducing than anything. I mean, look at everything coming up on the back side of you. You don't need that in your life. Look forward.
Braver man than I. I'm always worried about running into somebody. Koundalis could have problems not just in front but behind. Jorge Nieva tries to take advantage, but he's too deep into the corner. And look at Koundalis on the throttle a little hard. He'll spin the rear wheels up, but he doesn't lose the spot.
That had to be from a slowdown, right? We've seen these slowdowns really affect a lot of drivers. And I think slowdown came from maybe that Wall of Champions chicane for Arturis, and that's why he dropped back to this Hisada-Nieva battle, because he was up there with Kevin Verbruggen challenging 5th place.
Oh, this time it's Arturis who goes in a little bit too deep. Did he get a slowdown penalty from that one? No, doesn't look like it. Although Nieva, the great launch, now going to try and play a game of chicken down into Lapingle. He'll be to the outside, could cut back. No, it was Koundalis who almost covers him off by just making a mistake.
That was a NASCAR-style move, right? You go into the brake zone, step on the pedal as hard as you can, and you say, hey, sorry, everybody else, I'm going to use your tires as well. Here comes Nieva on the attack down the straightaway. Once again, backs out in the brake zone, maybe just trying to force his competitor into a mistake. Not quite confident enough to kind of take it too wide into that chicane. I don't blame him. Here comes another chance at it.
Looking up around the outside, Nieva again is going to have to be very deep to make this work. Tries the cut back, but is not there. Koundalis will hold on to 7th. 4 laps to try and sort this one out between the pair of them. I have to say, we usually see Arturis in the past in the IMSA Vintage Series racing the Audi 90 GTO. I hope we get more of him because he is fun to watch. Oh, we got a big accident in front of them.
I think that was maybe the number 30 car, but I also see Kevin Verbruggen dropping the order. Yeah, that was the number 5 of Verbruggen.
Oh, no. I suspect that may have been lap traffic at the wrong place and wrong time for Kevin, and he is out of this race late on after he was having such a great run. We'll try and check on that in a bit, see if we can unravel what happened to him. But Nieva and Kunelis carry on this battle now for 6 because of that incident.
I'm sure we'll get a replay, and it's going to tell, unfortunately, a very sad story for Kevin Verbruggen as Nieva finally gets forceful here into the chicane, and Gundelis just can't put the power down. You see the rear end of that car just wiggling, squirming all over the place, and in fact, I think he's got another slowdown because you see Nieva just rocket off down the road. Here's the, yeah.
Oh, whoa.
So what we didn't see there, Joe, is that lapped car was, call it 2 car lengths in front, exiting that chicane. And he saw Verbruggen coming up, decide to lift off the gas, but the funnel had already closed. Verbruggen was going to follow him through and was not expecting the lapped car to all of a sudden slow down.
Man, frustration, undoubtedly, but got to stay predictable if you're those lapped cars, and it didn't seem like that one worked out. Gary Ho now versus Kunelis. I'm very curious if it was a slowdown or if maybe he just had a missed shift and was struggling to get it out of neutral and into gear.
That's a good point. And a lot of these drivers, as you can see from Gary Ho's point of view, use a lot of quote-unquote realistic equipment, right? They're using the H-pattern shifters. Most of the time they're using multiple pedals as well. They're not just using that auto clutch, if you will. So yeah, you can get it stuck in between gears, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was usually the Audi that had the problems with the shifting, but these 49s are no easy feat as well.
Yeah, it is very much the Audi 90, notorious for not wanting to go into gear. You have to be so precise, and Arturis will be well familiar with that. Unfortunately, did not want to experience it here, as he's still got a bit of a battle. Unfortunately, it's no longer with Nieva. It's now Gary Ho and Laust Olsen in behind him. 3 laps left to go. Chances are running out for our drivers.
You see up on top of the board, Valenteus put down a smoker of a lap, 32.4. That's about 3/10 faster than Mick Claridge chasing him. I will say, though, that they are running into significant lap traffic. So Mick Claridge was back about 3.7 seconds, and it's actually brought it down to what is 2.5 seconds. So not close by any means in terms of a battle, but at least keeping them honest with 2 laps to go.
2 longtime regulars in the series, Porter versus Ackerman. They'll also go by a little bit of lap track. Matthew Keane staying off to the side. It's a good run from the Unicorn Machine. Bjorn's got a chance to get one more spot here at the very end. He'll get down to the inside, but he's not brave enough on the brakes. He'll allow Porter to hold on for this time.
This has been a great comeback drive for Cam Porter in this red 26. Remember, he had that early spin all by himself in that turn 1-2 complex, and he's just been able to focus forward, and now he's up into 18th spot. That's actually 5 positions further up than where he qualified the car, so nice drive for Cam.
You know, they always say you can't win it on turn 1, and you have to be in for the whole race, but as we come to the 1 to go, this gap of about 3 seconds has been the story for much of this race, Joey. It does feel like those first few laps kind of set the stage for how this was going to play out.
I'm going to set us up for a classic commentary disagreement here, Joe. I don't think it was lap 1, turn 1. I think it was qualifying. Valenteus put himself in front of the field. He got that extra jump from just being a few feet in front of his competitors, which fed him into that turn 1 complex. But ultimately, it's been speed in every single session. Nobody can match Valenteus out front.
I think this is going to be win number 8 this season, if I've counted correctly. If he comes home with this one, I'll double check on that just to be sure. Actually, might be 7. Yeah, because we're in round 10, are we not? Yeah, so this will be number 7 for him if he brings it home from here. With just a couple more corners to go through 8 and 9, we keep half an eye on Gary Ho, Laust Olsen, and Steve Morris in there, or excuse me, a Kundelis there at the front of the group. On to the brakes there for Valenteus, down into Lapingle for the very last time. All he has to do is navigate the wall of champions, and he's home free.
I will say that Valenteus has done a terrific job. Mick Claridge has kept him honest, but I'm also happy to see Seb Tixier sitting there in that 3rd place. Not exactly where he hoped to be running, but hopefully will still stand on the podium.
Through the final chicane, Here in the land of the North, it is going to be Andreas Valenteus increasing his win so that nobody that can overtake him in terms of win this season. Number 7 for the number 1.
Nicely done. Mick Claridge here in the red number 4 completes the race in second place with a huge, call it e-brake slide into turn number 1. Seb Tixier will finish on the podium there in third place. And hey, look at that logo on the side. That's a good-looking driver, if I must say so.
We might have a battle to the line here. Gary Ho versus Laus Stolson, tight between them. Who's going to come out ahead for 8th position? It looks like it will narrowly be Gary Ho by 19 thousandths of a second.
And this is another battle. So this is Akuliski trying to get by Sliumba. They're going to go too wide. Can they get through the other side? Liski makes contact with Sliumba, unfortunately, but what does that do? That gives Andreas a black flag from the incident. Oh no, I think Liski will maintain that 15th place because I think Andreas is going to be dropped down the order.
You're right. It was right at the end. She pushed it a bit too hard. At least it's just a drive-through penalty and not a DQ. That would probably be worse in this situation as he'd fall way far down. So Gatto will bring us home. So one of the last drivers on the lead lap, I think Ben Summers is going to be the final one of our 38 drivers to complete here. And Summers will be 23rd from that one. Definitely a lot of lap cars in today's races. Yeah, a lot of drivers also burning it down in that runoff, having some fun here at the very end of the race, just enjoying themselves. Bjorn Ackerman doing some quite beautiful donuts, actually. Very, very spot on. That is about as precise as you can get.
One of the things that I love about the virtual world is you don't have to tiptoe it back to pit lane. You don't have to pick up all the marbles on the racetrack to clear the ride height across tech. You can go out there and you can choose to exit the car however you want, whether that's smashing into a wall or some celebration donuts.
Exactly. And as we take a look at the results, I'm sure there's going to be celebrations for Valenteus. He gets one step closer to another title as Mick Claridge will come home P2. And Seb Tixier, he eventually got into third after that hard-fought battle, but it certainly took some elbow grease, and he comes home with a podium. It was Leo Sequeira in fourth, Togo Hisada in fifth, and Jorge Nieva in a P6. Kundalus, speaking of a hard-fought battle, he gets that 7th spot over Gary Ho, who narrowly beats Laus Stolson, who takes 9th, and Steve Morris comes home with a top 10.
John Olsen here in 11th place, a nice run, plus 10. Ricardo Martinez in 12th here. Gerard Burrell, I think, is actually our biggest mover of the day, plus 22 positions for Gerard to finish in 13th. Akuliski will finish in 14th back here. Robert Plumley, 15th. Matthew Maudsley, 16th. Cam Porter with that redemption run after the early mistake, 17th. Ackerman, nice drive from him, up 6 to finish in 18th. Kirk Lapper, 19th, and Marco Salgado back here in 20th.
21st goes to Ben Zocco, followed by Ben Summers, 22nd. Andreas Sliumba will, because of his penalty, fall back to 23rd and last on the lead lap. Thomas Martin, lap down in 24th, is followed by Thomas Villershausen in 25th, Andre Bruno 26th, and Don Peak 27th today. Then you've got Mitch Heller in 28th, Jonathan Jourdain 29th, and Matthew Keane in 30th, with, I think, the rest of the field here, mostly DNFs. Just a handful managed to get back out on track and wrap this one up. Looks like we've got Seb Tixier ready to chat with us, so why don't we have a little talk with our third place finishers. Seb, you eventually got into that third position, but it looked like you had to work pretty hard to get there in the first place.
Yeah, it was a race of the slowdown at some point. I think we had at some point, I don't remember exactly when, it was quite early. We had a battle with Togo and Nico. They were close behind me. And I think the three of us, we had a big slowdown on the chicane of the champion. And then it was the race of which one we're going to manage to finish first of the slowest, I guess. Sorry. I'm a
All
bit
of us
sick.
having As I was just going to say, all of us having a problem with coughing here today, apparently. But talk to us about what the race was like once you finally managed to get to that P3. You saw McClarridge up the road. Did you kind of feel like it would wind up as it did, where it was just going to be too difficult to run him down?
It was because after taking 2 slowdown, you don't want to take even more risks, especially after I get some gap with Leo. No, but the race, I was stupid, just stupid. I shouldn't have. I had a bad run of the chicane, the épingle, and Mick attacked me, and I tried to defend, and I lost even more time. So I should have just let him pass and follow, and try to catch up on Nodrios, and that's where I lost any chance to go further. I mean, maybe P2 with a good battle with Mick, couldn't even battle because after it was too far, and I did mistakes on the airplane. I did mistakes with chicanes, and I didn't want to take more risk on cutting too much the chicane to go faster.
Hearing your accent on some of these corners reminds me that we are in the French portion of Canada here. I'm very curious, what is the French translation of Wall of Champions?
Le mur des champions.
All right.
And l'épingle is the épingle, and it's just mean hairpin.
I did know that much, although I very much Americanized the pronunciation, unfortunately.
The pingle. The pingle.
Okay, I'll try to remember that for the future. Well, congratulations on a top 3, and hopefully we'll chat with you more this season.
Thank you.
That was Seb Tixey. Hopefully goes to get a cough drop after that one. I think Joey has since caught up with McClarridge, who also had a lonely one.
Yeah, McClarridge second place, but like Joe was saying, quite a lonely race.
Yeah, pretty lonely race. Yeah, I just thought I'd come in and say hello, basically. But,
well, you know, and not to expand on it, but it certainly seems like Valenteus was almost kind of keeping you around at about 2.5, 3 seconds. But then as soon as you would close that gap, he was like, nope, I can go faster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I noticed that too. Don't worry about that. Yeah. The start of the race was where it all ended, really, wasn't it? I mean, messing around with Seb, trying to get around Seb, and then because Seb had a great first lap, trying to keep up with Aldris. So his car was going sideways more than it was going straight. But I know what that's like. I know that feeling of trying to think, I have to keep up with this guy. And Aldris is on the limit from the green light. That's it. Turn 1 braking zone, green light, that's it, the limit. He's on the limit. And you just have to drive out your skin to keep up with this guy, In fact, I don't even think he's a guy. I think I'm going to start calling him an it. You seen that film
AI.
Tron? I reckon. Yeah, that's it. He's Tron. He's in the computer. He's inside the thing.
Well, so watching the rest of the field out here, Mick, it seemed to kind of be the race of the slowdowns. You guys up front just kind of stayed on it the whole time. Was there any of them that you thought, oh man, guaranteed that was a slowdown, but it actually wasn't?
Yep. I had 2. I had one in the last chicane where that's where the gap went out to 3 seconds. I thought I was way over the curb. And I think what happens is, you probably know yourself, Joe, if you pull the front wheels over into a slowdown, but the back wheels aren't in a slowdown, we get away with it. And I think that's what happened twice on the 2 ones that I thought I'd get. So yeah, one in the first chicane and one in the last chicane, and one in the chicane after the bridge. I went well wide there as well and thought I was going to get one.
Well, I wish I knew what you were talking about, but I am nowhere near that talented in the sim. So I'll take your word for it on the slowdowns, Mick. But thank you so much for coming out and racing every single week, especially towards the front, bringing your character, bringing your personality. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's not really slowdowns in real life, is there? But,
no.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, there's one guy, and I'm so glad I remember this. Lessons tell you guys spoke about this during the race, but if any guys are thinking about joining the series and they're worried about, I don't know, they have to set the car up, I don't know this, everyone shares sets in this community, like you guys always say. But I just want to note one guy, Jorge Nieva, has run the same set for nearly 3 years now. So ever since the car got updated, he won the championship running the same setup. Just wanted to mention that because I don't think anyone really knows that out in the YouTube land and all the rest of it. Yeah? Pretty crazy stuff.
That's pretty incredible stuff. I know that Mick's mic was kind of cutting out there, but he was mentioning that all of the fast guys in this vintage series, it doesn't matter if it's the 79s, the IMSA vintage, or the Lotus 49s, they all love to share the fast setup. And he was just mentioning that Jorge Nieva is actually on the same setup for the past few years. He won the championship in that setup. So if you want to come and race these 49s, you're going to be getting the setups from previous champions, fast guys up front. Mick, thank you so much for racing with us, and congrats on that second place.
That's right. I didn't know you could do that. See you guys.
That was Mick Claridge driving that number 4 car, also known as a potato microphone today.
Unfortunately for him, I'll have to get that thing off the grill pretty quickly as we talk to Cam Porter now, who came home in 17th today. We didn't get to cover it, but Cam, I went back and watched. It looked like you passed about a dozen cars there on the first lap as everybody went off.
Yeah, there was carnage. A lot of people crashing, lots of smoke. I managed to make it through, thankfully. I was hoping I might have a good race with, the guys that were around the same pace as me, like Robert Plumley, Bjorn Ackerman. But I took a weird bounce off of the curb in turn 2 and turn 1, and spun the car. Didn't have trouble there at all of practice. So that kind of stymied me. But I managed to get almost back up to Robert Plumley. He was 10 seconds down the road, so I guess that 10 seconds I lost in the spin. So, had an okay race today, and good race, close racing with a couple of guys. I had an unfortunate contact with Jonathan Jordan. We were going side by side into the first chicane, and there was some contact, and he went off into the wall, unfortunately. So sorry about that, but I feel like I left him lots of room. But yeah, had a fun race with Bjorn Ackerman near the end, and happy to get back into the top 20 after spinning.
A Canadian apologizing. We never hear that. But as we finish up here, how was it? As you mentioned, kind of home soil racing here today. Did you feel any extra pressure to do good?
Not necessarily. It's just it is another track. I enjoy racing in Montreal, and it's interesting to see a track that I've actually been on in real life in a sim like this. It makes adds a little bit of extra interest. So, I always come back, enjoy coming back to Montreal. So I'm looking forward to the race next week as well.
Yeah, going off to the Nürburgring Grand Prix course. So another difficult one. Well, thanks for coming and chatting with us, letting us know what all happened with you, and hopefully we'll get some more interesting chats with you post-race.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
That was Cam Porter finishing 17th today. And we'll wrap this one up with a big thank you to everybody in the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Like we said, we're off to the Nürburgring Saturday, March 1st at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. But don't worry, if you don't like the Nordschleife, this is going to be the Grand Prix course that they are tackling. We've got more races coming up, though, including IMSA Vintage Series going to Fuji later today. So that's going to be fun to watch. That'll be at noon Eastern. In the meantime, be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.